Hello, it is 5th of August 2018 and this is episode 75 of Scavenger's Hoard, a Star Wars podcast. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Kirsty.
We're here to deliver a regular rundown of Star Wars news, analysis and commentary, with a focus on the sequel trilogy and the future of the saga. So, Kirsty, have you been able to do any Star Wars stuff this week? I strongly doubt it. But
not an awful lot, because
yes.
I've been on holiday. But I've still been checking in because we've had some exciting little tidbits.
Exactly. And I also know for a fact that you've been brainstorming ideas for our potential episodes lying ahead, haven't you?
Yeah, I have, because we want to keep the ball moving and keep thinking about what we want to offer our listeners and maybe make it a bit more interactive.
Yeah.
So we were going to have a poll, right?
Yeah, that's right. We were thinking of doing a Twitter poll with an assortment of exciting possibilities for you guys to choose from. We are not yet in a position to announce what those options are, mainly because we haven't had a chance to talk about it yet. But when we have actually decided on the ones we are most interested in, then we're thinking of passing the baton over to you, dear listeners, so that you can help inform our choices. Because, basically it's been the summer, so we've been on holiday, and it basically means that we haven't been able to do things like super long, intense spotlights, because obviously there's all these kinds of commitments pulling us away and distracting us. But we're going to be moving away from the summer holidays soonish, and then there should be more potential to do spotlights again. So, we want your help, essentially. So you'll be the decision makers, guys. It's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, it sounds kind of silly, but I get quite guilty about not being able to do those long episodes in the summer.
Oh, really?
Because, we have lives. but that's the stuff that I love doing, and I know that our listeners love that about our show. So, it'll be nice to kind of get back to those. Yeah,
no, definitely. So I really do like the spotlights. It's fun. It's obviously a bit more work because you need to actually prepare it. You can't typically, wing a 1 hour intensive character discussion. But that's part of the fun, to be honest, creatively thinking about things and writing up your notes. So it'll be good to return to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we should probably move on to the news for this week because of the aforementioned busy lives that we are both leading at the moment.
Yes, we're very important.
Yes, we both have very full calendars with appointments and audiences with our adoring fans. No, not really. So the big news this week is that episode 9 has started filming, which is crazy. The first day of filming was on Wednesday, 1st of August, which was announced last week. And to commemorate the first day of shooting, JJ actually tweeted out a picture along with the following tweet. Grateful for Rian Johnston and special thanks to George Lucas for creating this incredible world and beginning a story of which we are lucky to be a part. #9. And would you like to describe the picture that JJ put out, Kirsty?
Yeah, well, everyone's had fun overanalyzing it and zooming into every possible pixel.
Yeah.
But you can see Finn, or John Boyega. We don't know if he's in character at that moment. But he's wearing a vest, so it looks like a new costume if it is actually a costume.
Yeah.
And then to his right is Chewbacca. And then there's someone sat in the seat, which seems to be, well, you can't see their face. And there have been all sorts of theories about who it is. I think it's JJ.
Yeah, it's so hard. Can you see that there's also the very small image on the monitor of the camera?
Yeah, people have been zooming into that too.
Yeah, they have, Because to me it does look more like a woman. I totally understand why people are saying JJ, and I get what you're saying.
Well, the shirt looks like the kind of shirt that he wears.
I guess, it's kind of like one of those Rorschach test things again, where everyone sees what they want to see. But to me, it almost looks like a kind of puffer jacket thing. It reminds me a bit of what Leia wore on Hoth. It's reminding me of that sort of style. Again, it could easily be a strap or a lanyard, who knows. But there is the thing coming down the person's shoulder that looks like it might be a braid or a ponytail or whatever. So, I'm leaning towards a woman, but I wouldn't be able to say who. It could be Kelly, it could be Daisy, it could even be Naomi, the new actress that they've cast. Although I doubt that, to be honest, because I'm not sure they're going to give her the wheels of the Falcon. Although who knows?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's impossible to say. So
Yeah.
everyone's just having lots of different theories, and it's we'll see.
Yeah.
If we ever find out, if we ever see the actual picture of this moment, but
Yeah.
it's JJ being his typically elusive self.
Yeah.
Like, oh, here's a picture, but it's not really.
Yeah. Exactly. Although, having said that, this alone marks a big upgrade in terms of coverage from JJ.
Yeah, there's a StarWars.com article saying that they're going to track everything that he puts out, and he did just make his account public because he's had a private Twitter account for a while.
Yes.
So I think they must have seen the strategy of Rian Johnson and Ron Howard and seen how fans respond to it, and it keeps them engaged during the wait. So hopefully we can see more.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly what's happened, especially in this case because there is such a long gap now until the next Star Wars movie. Because previously it was always no more than 12 months because it was every December. But obviously because Solo's now been and gone, and that was so shortly after The Last Jedi, December's going to come round with no Star Wars. So they need to find a way of keeping up that momentum. And yeah, I think this is a good way of doing it.
True. Also, JJ thanked Ryan in his tweet.
Yes, I really liked that because you do see all crazy kinds of conspiracy theories about, oh, JJ hates what Ryan did with his story, and Ryan like shat upon everything that JJ set up in The Force Awakens. But I think that's clearly like a lot of fan projection going on, and I don't for a minute think that that's how JJ feels. I think if anything, JJ felt very inspired and excited by what Ryan did because it was kind of like a creative challenge. You know, it's like, well, I've thrown everything all over the place, and now it's your task to pick that up and take it forward. And the most exciting thing is that the only option for JJ at this stage is to take things forward. He can't really turn back time and put everything back how it was before, and I don't think he'd want to do that. So
yeah, he's only ever spoken positively about what Ryan did, and he said before the movie came out that he was very excited and that Ryan had taken it in a direction that they agreed on a lot of things, but there were also things that he did differently because he's a different director and writer.
Yeah.
My favourite new conspiracy theory is that, you know, you can see the numbers 7 and 9, the Roman numerals there. My favourite new theory, this is not my theory, by the way, that is because they don't include 8 there, it means that JJ hates it and wants to erase it from the canon. I've seen this.
I have also seen this. I have seen lots of conspiracy theories along these lines. It's absolutely hilarious. It ignores the fact that it's probably just because it's the same camera that was used for 7 and 9.
He's using the same team.
Yeah.
You know, it's Dan Mindell, right? Director of photography. He was on TFA too.
Exactly.
And JJ was executive producer of The Last Jedi. So
yeah, I think people just need to accept that JJ is absolutely fine with The Last Jedi, and yeah, because seriously, if he felt like he had no story to build off of what Ryan did in The Last Jedi, he wouldn't have come back. You know, if he was like, oh, this is a total shit show, I hate what's happened, I hate the direction they've gone in, he wouldn't have wanted to return to it, you know? So yeah, I think it's all rather silly. Just a quick question on the basis of the director of photography thing. Did you prefer the aesthetic of The Force Awakens or the aesthetic of The Last Jedi?
Probably The Last Jedi.
I find it really hard, but I actually think The Force Awakens for me.
Okay.
I feel like that's an outlying choice because I do think that most people think that The Last Jedi was more technically proficient. I just think in terms of visual storytelling and just the beauty of the images, there's shots in The Force Awakens that really stand out for me in a way that they didn't quite in The Last Jedi. Like those real, like, huge close-ups of Rey and Kylo's faces with the colours flickering across their faces and stuff. You know, I can't quite think of anything that vivid from The Last Jedi, although I still love it and think it looks beautiful.
Yeah, I think both films are absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
I think there's an amazing use of colour in both. And yeah, I don't know. I know we've been doing this, like, choosing between them thing lately, but I don't want to. I love them both.
I'm sorry, that's mostly instigated by me. I think it's some primal urge to, like, it's just better.
Yeah, I know that the Star Wars fandom likes to rank the movies, but I actually really don't. So
yeah, it's a torturous task for you.
There's a Star Wars film for every moment and mood.
Yes, that's very true. You have a very good philosophy towards these films. Yeah, and the other thing just to point out is obviously that JJ also acknowledged George Lucas.
Yeah, it's the final chapter of the Skywalker saga, supposedly. So, makes sense to thank the maker.
Yeah, exactly. And I've also seen like rumours that I don't for a minute think are true, because I think they're from like MovieWeb via Mike Zero, so you know what that means. But there's like rumours going around about, they're consulting George Lucas, they want his input on the final chapter. And while I don't for a moment believe that those sources actually have legitimate information, it wouldn't surprise me if JJ had at least had a conversation with George, like about mine.
Definitely, because there's a phone call between him and Ryan in The Director and the Jedi, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just makes sense for them to check in with him, and we know he was on set for Solo and offered like tiny little suggestions for things. So it's nice to still keep him slightly involved, or as involved as he wants to be.
Yeah, exactly. So if it's meant to cap off everything, then I think it's quite respectful to at least discuss plans with him. Like, not necessarily giving him any like big, huge, critical decisions to make, but at least seeing how would you do this and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Then the next story is via Star Wars Newsnet, and they had an interview with a source who spoke to Todd Fisher, who's Carrie Fisher's brother, about where this footage of Leia for episode 9 will be coming from. So basically it's like one big game of telephone. There's like a source told another source who told another source, you know, like, so it's a bit of a chain. But I think it seems quite reliable. And yeah, would you like to read this story out, Kirsty?
Yeah. Star Wars Episode 9 co-writer and director J.J. Abrams recently revealed that Carrie Fisher will be returning in the final installment of the saga through unused footage from The Force Awakens. We have now learned some additional information about Carrie's return. In an appearance this week on the Resistance broadcast, which is Star Wars Newsnet's podcast, ABC News' Clayton Sandell told us that Carrie's brother, Todd Fisher, revealed to him that in addition to unused footage from Abrams' The Force Awakens, they will also utilise unused footage from Rian Johnston's The Last Jedi. Fisher went on to say that big surprises are coming from this footage and this performance. Sandell broke the news to us an hour after speaking directly to Todd Fisher, the brother of the late Carrie Fisher. Sandell on his discussion with Fisher. I talked to Todd Fisher today about all of this, and he's been talking with J.J. Abrams about it. I asked him, because the press release only said The Force Awakens, so I asked about The Last Jedi, and they are also using unused footage from The Last Jedi. I asked him how many minutes of footage they had from it, and he said, I can't tell you that. He said there were big surprises coming. Big surprises with this movie, this performance, and the unused footage, and said this one is really for the fans. But they apparently have a number of unused minutes from both The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. Todd and the whole family are very excited and wanted it to happen. And then the article goes on to include these comments from Ryan. In speaking with Inverse last December, Rian Johnston spoke on scenes of Carrie's that didn't make the final cut of The Last Jedi, as well as discussions he had with J.J. Abrams about the potential for using that material in Episode 9. This was from Ryan. There weren't any big scenes. There were smaller scenes that structurally just ended up falling away, same as there were with any of the other characters, but there wasn't any big and significant. I had a conversation with JJ and said, you can take a look at anything we didn't use, but I don't think there's anything there. The truth is, there isn't a ton of her that we shot that we didn't use in the movie. So this is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, was Ryan just being coy at that time? Because we didn't get any deleted scenes of Carrie in The Last Jedi, right?
Yeah.
So obviously at that point, I mean, by the time they put the Blu-ray out, which was April of this year, they must have decided that this was where they were going.
Yes.
So, we don't know anything about these deleted scenes.
It is so tricky.
Because the Force Awakens stuff, we have more of an idea, don't we?
Yeah.
There's all that stuff from that teaser with Maz and her exchanging the saber. And in the commentary, JJ said that originally they were going to show Leia before she reunites with Han, but then they decided to save it so that you kind of get Leia from Han's perspective.
Yeah. And we also know that the discussion that Han and Leia had about Ben on the Resistance base, that was originally completely different. And then I think after Harrison's accident, they went back and they basically reshot that entire scene. So that the dialogue was all different. Like initially it was much more expository and contained a lot more information about what happened with Snoke and everything.
Interesting.
Yeah, like I think the version that was originally shot, I think the novelization of The Force Awakens is the best reference point for that. Because I get the impression that that's what they initially filmed before they went back and changed it.
Okay, I'm going to have to go back and look at passages like that, but I do seem to remember that it's a lot more like, no, it was Snoke, and we didn't tell you because we didn't think that you would react very well. And
yeah, it's that sort of thing.
It's a lot more... she really emphasises that... I mean, I know she says in the film, like, he seduced our son to the dark side, but they really go into more detail, right?
Yeah.
That he was there in the shadows watching always.
Yeah. The only thing I could think with that sort of material is if they were to take Carrie's parts from that, but instead of having it be a conversation with Han, which obviously wouldn't happen in 9 for obvious reasons, have it be a conversation with Rey or another character.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously that would be a bit of a challenge to pull off technically, but is not impossible. And they would at least have quite a lot of actual footage to work with in terms of Carrie's performance. So, but yeah, that's very much like spitballing. You know, there's nothing solid to base that on, but it's a possibility for them.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think through all the possibilities. And I think whatever they come up with, we're going to be surprised by, because there's so much now that we can't anticipate.
Yeah.
I mean, now we know that Leia's going to be, or at least the footage that they have of Carrie, she's in 2 different costumes.
Yeah.
So are they going to give her a completely new one? Is ILM going to work its magic? And I don't know. It's so cool to think about.
Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say they're going to have to give her like new costumes digitally, because yeah, they're going to need to make it cohesive in some way, and they also can't make it be tied too closely visually to The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, because otherwise it would instantly stand out as wrong. It's like, hang on, why is Leia stuck back in time like this?
Yeah. It's going to be just so interesting to see how believable it becomes, because it could very easily take you out of it, right?
Yeah.
Because we know that it's not really Carrie filming those scenes with these current actors.
Yes.
So it's going to have to be done so seamlessly.
Yeah. Have you seen Gladiator, the Russell Crowe film?
Yeah.
I didn't know this, and if I have seen Gladiator, I don't really remember it, to be honest. It was a long time ago. But,
yeah, I haven't seen it for ages.
Yeah, but the actor Oliver Reed in that film, he died during production, so he wasn't able to film all his scenes.
Okay.
And they used like a mix of CGI and clever editing and doubles and everything to basically complete his performance without him.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so there's some quite interesting clips you can watch from that, like on YouTube, that are a good reference point. And that's very impressive, because that film's obviously from 2000. And what they could do back then, it looked pretty photorealistic and seamless. And it's like, wow, they could do that then. They could be really, really sophisticated about it now.
Okay. I might have to rewatch that then.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, seems like a challenge.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's an interesting like study in what is possible. Although, of course, in Gladiator it was a bit different, because at least he'd filmed most of his scenes for that particular movie. Whereas Carrie obviously didn't film anything for episode 9. Due to the timing of the tragedy. But yeah, no, there's lots of possibilities open to them. And yeah, the most intriguing thing is, like you said earlier, Kirsty, what on earth could this Last Jedi footage be? Because we just have no reference point for cut Leia material. And like you say, Ryan in that interview was obviously saying, oh, it's insignificant, it's just like connective tissue, basically. Like, how true is that? Especially when you also get Todd Fisher like implying, oh, it's this huge stuff, it's really explosive, fans are going to be really surprised. You know, what could that involve?
Yeah, there's only one thing, and it's only a theory at this point. There's one shot of the behind the scenes footage that we got before the movie came out from last summer. And it looks, even though they're basically obscured by cameras and other people and that, but it looks potentially like Adam Driver and Carrie Fisher were there together. But we don't know if that was to like film a scene or if it was just for promotional shots or anything.
Yeah.
So I know that a lot of fans are really holding on to the idea that there could potentially be something filmed between them, but that's literally the only lead that we have.
Yeah. Oh, it's so tantalizing. You know, but I think another main takeaway for me from this is also that basically everything that's coming out is saying to me that I think Leia is going to be alive in this film. I don't think they're going to kill her off in it.
Oh, me neither.
Yeah, because before this news came out about what they were going to do with Leia in episode 9, I really did think that was really the only way they could go. But if they're going to be incorporating footage from Last Jedi and The Force Awakens, that sounds like they really do want to make it something quite significant. You know, as significant as possible anyway.
Yeah, our understanding of Leia's part in 9 has changed completely now, because we knew that they'd said no to CG, and we were really skeptical of the idea of recasting, because it would have been so hard to find the right person.
Yeah.
But now it's like, yeah, they're going to have her in the movie, and it won't be as significant a part as if she had still been alive to film it, because we know that it was going to be Leia's movie. But yeah, it seems like they really want to make a good attempt at having her in the story, and it wouldn't make sense to me, based on what we've been hearing, for her to die in the movie now.
Yeah, same.
Like, how can they do that? So
yeah, no, that would feel very peculiar. Like, if they're putting all this effort into assembling a performance from footage that they already have. So I really don't think they'd go to that extreme if, like, it would just, like, we see a shot of Leia's ship and then it blows up, you know?
yeah, and that way you can have extra stories of her afterwards as well.
Yeah, which is fantastic. And I know that there's quite a few fans who, like, are upset about the fact that they've been killing off the old heroes. And so I think it would help to leave things on this note of hope if Leia lived on, even though Carrie didn't.
Especially with Lando coming back too.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone lives! Sorry, Doctor Who reference. Doctor Who reference.
Just a hopeful ending, please.
Yeah, please. Cuff redemption. Cuff.
Just all of it. Like, I just want Rey to be happy, and Finn to be happy, and Rose to be happy, and
yeah, we want a final shot like Return of the Jedi, where like everyone's linking arms and doing big goofy grins, including the redeemed Ben Solo, and they're all buddies.
It might be a bit more bittersweet than that.
You got to dream big, Kirsty. Dream big or go home. Oh goodness. Right. Then the next thing to just mention, and this is really a relatively quick mention, so it's not much of a story, is that we have the whereabouts of lots of the cast members of we have the whereabouts of lots of the cast members of episode 9, because basically we knew that John was filming because of that shot from JJ's Twitter, but we didn't have authoritative information on where everyone else was. And then Oscar Isaac hosted a charity event for a cause called London for Guatemala, and that was held at the Everyman Cinema in Muswell Hill on Thursday, August 2nd, so the day after filming started. And some very, very lucky people got to see, among others, Daisy Ridley, Adam Driver, Domhnall Gleeson, and of course Oscar Isaac himself. So yeah, it was very star-studded, and it seemed like a good chunk of the Star Wars cast turned out, which is really exciting, and it's also proof that those people are all gathered in London for filming now. So yeah, I'd imagine that it's probably a mix of them being needed to do a table read just before filming started, so they probably had to come over for that. And I imagine they're all also going to have to start shooting their own material soon. So yeah, it's very exciting stuff.
Yeah, because Adam was shown in New York recently filming a new Jim Jarmusch film, right?
Yeah.
That zombie one. It all seemed to be cutting pretty fine, and it was like, oh, okay, so they all going to start filming at the same time? Or because they're going to have promo going on for other movies as well, because I think Domhnall and Adam and Oscar all have other movies coming out this summer.
Yes, that's right.
So it'll be interesting to see if they go off to promote those, or if they're kind of absent from those press tours.
Yeah, so I know Adam hasn't done any press for BlacKkKlansman since Cannes. So
right.
I don't think he's involved, to be honest, which is a shame. So it's always nice to see Adam in a nice three-piece suit. But
well, he's also getting Oscar buzz for the role, so I thought he might have to go away to do stuff for that if he's campaigning, but maybe it's too early for that kind of thing.
Yeah, it could be too early, and I guess you also never know what's coming down the pipeline with like the festival movies that come out in the autumn. So they might see where things stand after like October and TIFF and everything, and then make a decision. But yeah, no, it's fantastic to see everyone gathering, and yeah, like it's very exciting. It really shows that the wheels are in motion. Of the appearance of everyone pretty much looked as you'd expect them to look for their Star Wars roles, including Adam having a big thick head of hair.
Shocking.
Absolutely not bald. Not bald.
My mind is blown.
Anyway,
I can't believe Boldo Ren isn't a thing.
Are you crying? Like tears of pain and regret?
I'm really mourning it. I'm in grief over Boldo. How will my life go on? Slimo helpfully pointed out the other day that they can perform magic and give him a bald cap or anything. So.
Yeah, they could, or they could like CGI out his hair if they really wanted to. So there's still hope for Balder Wren. Live the dream, Kirsty, live the dream. Yeah, so the only one who really didn't look quite like their Star Wars character to me was Donal, because he seemed to have a bit of a beard going on. Of course he can shave. And he definitely did not look like Hux in any way, because Hux is obviously very meticulous looking. I think, seriously, of all the cast members, I think Donal looks the least like his character. Would you agree with that?
I guess, because they can very easily like slick his hair up and that and give it a trim or whatever.
Yes.
Obviously he looks a lot more relaxed than Hux does.
Yes.
But yeah, but maybe Hux does have a beard at the beginning. Maybe he's like slowly degrading at the hands of Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. He's just feeling utterly humiliated and doesn't have any power anymore. And he's like, why bother shaving? Why bother maintaining these beautiful sideburns?
That'd be amazing. Like, imagine if he's just like on the deck of like this big Star Destroyer, but he's in like a dressing gown and slippers, like unshaven and like really dishevelled. Just, like,
I mean, he looked
point?
worse in The Last Jedi than he did in The Force Awakens, so the stress is just piling on.
It's true. It'd actually be really cool if they started out episode 9 with like Hux in prison or something. Like, and then he just sits in prison for the rest of the movie, and he serves no narrative purpose, but the film will just occasionally cut back to him just to like see what he's doing, and yeah, it would just serve no point. But it just
he's got to break out and then try to kill Kylo. So.
Yeah. No, I do want that plot. Please let us see Hux overthrow Kylo.
Or he goes after Rey because he was told that she killed Snoke.
Ooh, I'd like that.
And then Kylo's like, oh my god, I can't believe I implicated my girlfriend.
Like, oh no, my darling. Oh, I'll save you from the ginger beast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Call us JJ.
Yeah.
It's not too late. We can change the plot.
You know you can just adapt our fanfiction, right, JJ? Oh my gosh. Right, but to move on from that, then the other really quick thing to discuss is that John Boyega, who's like, is he the only cast member left standing on social media, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Apart from Mark.
Yeah, that's true. Mark's also quite active. But I guess the only young cast member still standing on social media. No disrespect, Mark. Yeah, so John is very active on Instagram, and he's been posting all kinds of Star Wars related things. And he posted a nice shot of him and presumably Naomi Ackie from the caption hugging, and he wrote, "Welcome to a whole new world, Naomi Ackie." And yeah, it's just a really sweet picture. It's also a great excuse for John to show off like his incredibly
I was going
muscly
to say,
arms.
This, as lovely and sentimental as it is, this is what I call the Kim Kardashian Instagram. because it's when people like, oh, happy birthday to my best friend, blah blah, or oh, love this person so much, but really it's about showing off how good they look.
Yes.
Because this is arm.
Like, his arm looks almost as thick as his head.
Respect.
It's crazy.
He looks good and he knows it, and yeah. And in all seriousness, it's lovely for him to welcome Naomi, because obviously they're two of the Black British actors in the cast, which is a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
Representation matters.
Yes.
And I wish we saw more of her face, but maybe there were more photos taken and we'll see them at a later date.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe there's some big secret about her appearance or something.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And I actually, seeing this picture of John with Naomi, it does make me think perhaps it is Naomi in that shot from JJ on the first day, because seeing John and Naomi hugging like that does imply that they're probably going to be working together.
Maybe.
Again, it might be a reach, but it's just a possibility. And again, you're going to totally eye roll me for this, so I apologise in advance. And I know this is a lazy theory, but just say, for the sake of argument, that Naomi Ackie is playing some kind of like daughter of Lando, then I do think there would be some kind of like poetry in her like driving the Falcon, taking over her dad's old ship, at least for a little bit. So that has the potential to be cool.
Yeah, there are plenty of theories going around about her being Lando's daughter or Finn's long lost sister, because we obviously got a hint of him talking about his family and how he was taken away from them in The Force Awakens, but the whole emphasis has been on Rey's parentage, but maybe we get Finn reunited with family.
Yeah.
I'm not subscribing to any of those theories, and I personally would prefer it if she was a brand new character unrelated to anyone.
Yeah.
But I can understand why people would want Finn to have like a family storyline like that.
Yeah. I'd be fine with Naomi playing Lando's daughter, but I really wouldn't want to see John play Lando's son. So I think that's just super lazy, and it's way too convenient as well.
I don't mean like those two theories are the same thing.
Oh, okay.
That like Finn is revealed as Lando's son. I mean like Naomi could either be Lando's daughter or Finn's sister.
Right, yeah. But anyway, to sum up, it's a very sweet picture, and yeah, it's nice that John has been such a good buddy, while also showing off his nice arms.
Yeah, and who can blame him,
yeah,
honestly.
Exactly. If you have arms like that, you should be proud of them. Right. So then, we also wanted to discuss an interview with E.K. Johnston about her new Padme novel. And would you care to read this, Kirsty?
Sure, so this is from StarWars.com. I know you can't say much about Queen Shadow, but what can you tell me about your Padme fandom? Well, it's funny because my favourite character in Star Wars is Leia, but Padme is my doctor, which is a Doctor Who fandom thing where like the doctor you love the most is your doctor. And Padme for Star Wars is my doctor. She's the character that got me back into Star Wars when I was 14. She's the character that helped me make all of my friends in Star Wars. I was 14 and she was 14 in The Phantom Menace, and I thought we would get along pretty well once I learned to be a super spy like the rest of her friends. And so I really wanted more of that story. When they were like, hey, do you want to write this book? And I was like, do I get the handmaidens? And they were like, yes. We just rolled from there. So it's fantastic to take these super smart, super fantastic girls and just write their stories and their relationships and all that kind of stuff. StarWars.com. There hasn't been a ton of extra stories about Padme. EK. No, there has not. StarWars.com. So what has that been like, charting that territory? The timeline is actually pretty compressed, and I can't get into that very much, but it was really kind of fun to work with what we have and know that we're going to have more. Like when I saw that art for Tim's book, the Padme poster in the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition of Thrawn Alliances, I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, even though I knew what my art looked like. So it's been fantastic to get all of that together. There keeps being more, which is great. Without spoiling anything, what do you want people to learn or understand about Padme that they might not have before? I think a lot of what Padme does in the movies goes on inside her head. So her brilliance and her political acumen, you don't necessarily see it play out in the movies. Because she's so smart, she doesn't explain what she's doing. Getting to kind of get inside her head a little bit and write from the perspective of inside her head, you sort of see how smart and how talented and how deeply compassionate she is. In a dress that weighs 80 billion pounds, or in a suit for sneaking around or whatever, she has it covered, because she knows herself and she knows her friends so well.
It's a really nice interview, and I already had confidence in this book and the author to know Padme well and do a good job. But yeah, I really like the view of the character she seems to have and that emphasis on her compassion, which I really appreciate, because I think that's something that comes across in the movies, of course, but I think it especially comes across in some of the deleted scenes. Like, I remember there's one of the deleted scenes from, I think, Attack of the Clones, where Anakin visits Padme at home, and they go into her childhood bedroom, and she has pictures up on the wall of the orphans that she helped when she was in some kind of program for promising young politicians or something, and it's that sort of thing that really informs her character, and it sounds like we're going to get that alluded to in this book, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she seems to genuinely love her and is excited, like we have been, about the prospect of writing Padme from her perspective. Let's experience the Star Wars universe through Padme's eyes, because so far that hasn't really been the case. And yeah, seeing more of her relationships with the handmaidens, I think that would be really great.
Yeah, no, exactly. As we've said before, more female friendships in Star Wars, please.
I think it's interesting that she says that Leia's her favourite character, but Padme's her doctor, and I'm just trying to work out what the difference there is.
Yeah.
That to me seems like Leia's my favourite, but then Padme's my favourite.
Yeah, it does kind of come across that way, to be honest. I'm not sure that's particularly well expressed, but I guess it's a way of saying I really love Padme, but she's not quite my favourite. Like, you know, it's like, yeah. And that's fine. Like, Padme doesn't need to be your favourite character. It's just a funny way of going about saying it. It's almost like she's afraid to admit that, yeah, actually I prefer Leia, but I do also still really love Padme.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if there are any connections between the two characters. Because obviously we got that in Leia, Princess of Alderaan, where Leia goes to Naboo and speaks to the current queen and even tries on a dress that Padme wore.
Yes.
But yeah, maybe we'll get some more mother-daughter parallels.
Yeah. It'd also be nice to see some interaction between Leia and Bail as well.
You mean Padme and Bail?
Oh yeah, Padme and Bail. Sorry, let me repeat that. It would also be nice to see some interaction between Bail and Padme as well, because in the movies, do we first see them interact in Attack of the Clones? Is that right?
I think so.
I know for a fact that Bail Organa isn't in The Phantom Menace.
No, he's not.
So it must have been Attack of the Clones at the earliest, and he was definitely in Revenge of the Sith. But yeah, it would be interesting to see where that friendship started, you know, and how that developed. So, yes, we will see.
Yeah, he's in Attack of the Clones, but not very much. But then I guess that's also true of Revenge of the Sith. So.
Yeah, I think in Attack of the Clones, he's probably like literally just seen standing behind Padme. She's like talking to Palpatine and trying to like argue the case.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right, then we're just going to move on to some quick listener questions. And the first is from Andy on Twitter. And so he actually asks 2 questions. The first, what level of familiarity do you guys have with the old EU, and how has that informed your perception of the new EU, if at all? You go first, Kirsty.
Not an awful lot, to be honest. So I've read part of the Thrawn trilogy. I haven't read the whole thing. I couldn't get through it.
Yeah.
And I've read the Revan book, and I'm in the middle of Courtship of Princess Leia. I need to get back to it. It's at home, so I can't read it right now. And I played Knights of the Old Republic as well.
Nice.
But that's about it. And just other stuff like I've absorbed through osmosis of being in the fandom, like, oh, I know that there was a clone called Luke.
Don't you mean Luke?
Was that not 2 U's? Luke.
Yeah, but it's just more fun to make it as extended as possible. Like, literally, it's just, it's so dumb.
Well, this is the thing. You hear things like that, and it doesn't really endear you to the old EU. And I'm sure there are great stories, and I know people love it very much. But you only hear about the crazy stuff that's like, oh my god, I don't think I could take that seriously.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to be completely honest. I haven't read any of the EU books. And I don't know, I guess it's just hard for me to summon up the desire to actually pick any of them up, you know, and read them, because obviously I know that they don't really inform the current canon anymore. Like, I know that the authors of the new EU can pick and choose like elements from the old EU if they want to use any, and as long as it's all approved and agreed and everything, they can go ahead. But yeah, that's not enough for me, and there's already so much Star Wars content, and I feel like I don't even have enough time for all the new EU stuff, that I always have to be selective, and I certainly don't have time to go back and read these books that don't really inform the current story at all, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just a case of, like, if you had been reading them before Disney got Star Wars, right?
Yeah,
so
of course.
We weren't, so I've had time to dip into it a little bit, but our focus is on the new EU, so...
Yeah, like...
and to be honest, I don't understand. I think it would actually be a real struggle if you were, like, super entrenched in the old EU, which I know a lot of fans are, and then trying to separate what counts as old canon versus new canon. I would be so confused.
Yeah, it would get very messy.
Oh, I guess the old novelizations aren't canon anymore either.
Yeah, no, they're not. So, in that case, I have read one old EU book, and that's the Revenge of the Sith novelization. And that's incredible. That's really, really great. So I can't recommend that highly enough. So yeah.
I know you're still hoping that Matthew Stover will write a new Star Wars novel.
Yeah, I do sincerely hope that. I think he said that he's not interested, which is fair enough. But it's a shame. Yeah, we're missing out on some raw, pure talent. But still, there is plenty of new talent in the... there's plenty of new talent in the game now to make up for it, so it all balances out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next question that Andy had was actually a suggestion for an episode, but I think
this is actually something I do want to do an episode on. I've been like suggesting it to people on Twitter and they seem really enthusiastic.
So maybe we should save it.
Well, we could get a guest.
Okay.
Because I know you don't have an awful lot of time to read fanfic.
Yeah.
I read a lot of fanfic and I have a lot of strong feelings on it.
Yeah.
So basically Andy is asking us what our favourite tropes and pairings and what our own fic ideas would be. I know you've written some fanfic. So...
Oh yeah, no, like, and don't get me wrong, I do read Star Wars fanfiction, quite a lot of it actually. It's just I tend to read like one-shots because I have the attention span of like a gnat. So
well, those are valid too. You can talk about those.
They are valid, but again, like another problem I find with fanfiction is that by its nature, a lot of it's quite repetitive. Don't get me wrong, like there's lots of very singular, unique and standout stories that are very much their own thing. But in my mind, it kind of turns into like this congealed mush of stories sometimes.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I find it a bit more difficult to talk about. But I would definitely still be open to having an episode on it and talking about the subject at more length. I could just like think about what I'm reading in a more reflective way than I do normally.
Yeah, exactly. Because I consume a lot of it, but there are certain stories that I'd prefer to talk about because they've just stayed with me.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, so we can plan that. But yeah, just quickly, do you have any favourite tropes then, like in fanfiction?
I'll read anything, and if it's well written, you know, that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
So I know after The Force Awakens, there was a lot of fanfiction in the Reylo fandom that Rey and Kylo had like known each other when they were younger, and there was a hugely influential fic called Light Young Gods that was like they trained at Luke's Jedi Temple together, and then Snoke seduced Kylo away. So, and then like obviously there's a second part when things get resolved, but there was that kind of thing a lot. And I guess for a long time the Force bond was a trope in fanfic before it became canon.
Yeah,
so.
That was the best. Yeah. Like, I think there's lots of exciting tropes in Reylo fanfiction. Like, for AU tropes, I quite like royalty AU ones, you know, where, like, Ben is a prince, and Rey...
Arranged marriage.
Yeah, like, arranged marriage, or, like, Rey's, like, a scrappy peasant, and then through, like, a series of hijinks, they end up getting involved, that sort of thing. I tend to find those kinds of stories quite fun. And I also... quite like the ones where it's like AU in terms of like what if Rey said yes or like if Rey made like a bargain to go with Ben to save the Resistance, that sort of thing. Like when that's done well, that can be really compelling and fascinating.
Have you read Landscape with a Blur of Conquerors?
I've read about half of it. It's really, really good, but it's very like intricate and detail oriented. So,
yeah, so that was what I was thinking of because you said like the royalty arranged marriage but I was thinking of that earlier when I was talking about the courtship of Princess Leia, because her dad in that story obviously is, spoiler alert if anyone's going to read the story, it's Prince Isolde who is courting Leia in that book. So one thing I really like about that writer is that she brings in a lot of EU things. So then that gets you intrigued by the EU, and then you can go away and start reading things because you've been introduced to them in that format.
Yeah. No, like I want to go back and read Landscape for Blur of Conquerisms properly. So I think what I also often do is obviously these stories, they're published chapter by chapter. So I'll read the latest chapter, but then it will have been a while since I read the previous chapters.
Oh yeah, I always click back and just read like the last few paragraphs to remind me.
Yeah. No, so I just need to give it a bit more headspace, I think, and then I'll get more out of it.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, there is another trope I really like. I really like the use of Padme in some fanfics with Rey and Kylo, which is obviously it has to be an AU because she's dead in canon, but there's this really great one called Satellites, I think, by Nimja. And so Ben is a senator. So he's got this relationship with Padme. So that's like the family member that he's closest to.
Is she alive in the story?
Yes.
Ooh, nice.
So Anakin is gone, but he was Rey's master as a Jedi. So it's kind of about Rey and Ben meeting under those circumstances.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's really well written, but I think she must be busy in her own life because she only updates sporadically, but I get very excited when she does.
It's like, ooh, inbox notification, yay!
Exactly.
No, that's always very cool. Right. I think we should come up with our fanfic idea another time.
Oh god, yeah. There's stuff that we were talking about earlier, you know, like there's lots of silliness, and I like a lot of crackfic as well, where the premise is very silly, but the writer can pull it off and make it entertaining.
Yeah, no, because we could do it like a round robin fic, where one person like says a sentence, like in terms of something that happens, and then the next person continues it. That can be fun.
Yeah, you know, I know some people who write fics together, and they will, like, one person will write one chapter and then the next person writes the next one. Or, like, they'll just kind of have a Google Doc and they'll write them together, so they'll just write whatever they can. Like Erin from Meta Machina, she's writing one with her friend, a Sepulchre of Prayer, I think it's called, which is really great. Like, that's one of the post-TLJ Canonverse fics that I've really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I like it when the Knights of Ren are prominent characters as well, because they're kind of more foils for Kylo to play off of and everything.
Yeah. No, that is
But
fun.
yeah, like, I don't know how people do that, but they do, and it works great. So they must just be able to find people who have very similar writing styles and interests to them, and they just gel.
Yeah. No, it's really cool. We should totally co-write a published work at some point. That'd be funny.
Oh, God.
Okay. So the next question is from an Anon on Tumblr. I am somewhat worried with all these new rumours of these new characters in episode 9. I understand that some new characters are needed, but it sounds like there could be too many. With the way The Last Jedi ended, Kylo and Rey need a lot of time to develop their relationship and possibly restore balance. After all, they are the central dynamic. Do you think episode 9 could get a little too sidetracked with time on these new characters, or do you think JJ will keep it focused on Kylo and Rey's story? I'm not worried about this at all. They've announced 3 new cast members for episode 9, so Kerry Russell, Naomi Ackie and Richard E. Grant. We don't know how big or small those roles will be, but you've also got to remember that The Last Jedi took a lot of people out of commission.
Yeah, a lot of people died.
Yeah, so like Holdo has gone permanently, Snoke is gone, hopefully permanently. Luke is dead, even though he'll obviously be back as a Force ghost. And Phasma is dead, and although we know that Leia will be in the film, it is likely to be in a relatively small role because of Carrie's passing. So, to be honest, they need new characters. Because the new characters will provide things like the conflict and the tension that you wouldn't get otherwise. You need these new ingredients in a story to keep it fresh and to keep it dynamic, because there has to be some kind of wild card introduced to like unsettle things and change the status quo.
Yeah, and we have no idea how significant these roles will be at this point. So a role in The Last Jedi that actually made a big footprint to me was Commander Daisy.
Yes.
But she's a minor character.
Yeah.
So she's just there as part of Poe's storyline.
Yes.
But she's really handy for exposition and kind of explaining more stuff about Holdo's relationship with Leia and like just kind of facilitating that side of the story. But you don't feel like the story's sidetracked and becomes Commander Daisy, a Star Wars story.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, they're just, if the writing is good, they're there to serve a purpose within the wider narrative, and they support the arcs of the major characters.
Yeah.
So she's one of my favourite minor characters in the new canon, but she's not like a major character. She's not, you know, it's not, but these people get announced and you have no idea. So it's really early days.
Yeah.
And we'll just see what happens. But I'm not worried either.
Yeah. It's like what Ryan said about how he wrote The Last Jedi, in that he like crafted the character dynamics because he wanted to test each character. So Poe had Holdo, Finn had Rose, and Rey obviously had 2 existing characters, and Luke and Kylo. But yeah, the whole point is that... Oh yeah, and Finn also had DJ, of course. And that's another character who probably won't appear in episode 9, unless they're keeping Benicio del Toro a big surprise, which I doubt. But yeah, the point of that is that they introduced all these new characters just to serve the existing characters' stories. So like Kirsty says, it's not about distracting from the main characters or taking away from them. It's just about trying to view them through a slightly different lens.
Yeah, I mean, let's take Richard E. Grant as an example. I still don't have any firm theories for what role he could play, but I know a popular idea because of his previous roles is that he could be a First Order officer. And I think that could be very valuable for the narrative, because obviously we have Kylo and Hux as foils to each other, but then you need someone to represent the wider system.
Yes.
And Hux, his relationship with Kylo has now reached this point of like a very personal vendetta. So he's emblematic of the Order in certain ways that Kylo can't be, even as Supreme Leader. He's still positioned as this outsider who's left by himself at the end, mournfully on the floor.
Yeah.
But it would be useful to have another officer there. It's just we can't say right now. It's still so early.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. So especially if you think in terms of the First Order, because with Snoke and Phasma gone,
and Captain Kennedy,
everyone's fave, like who stole the show in The Last Jedi.
5 bloody minutes ago.
He's such a classic character. Yeah, so basically the First Order's ranks in terms of the characters that we see the most of and that are most critical to the plot, they're very diminished. So we need someone there, basically, whether it's Kerry Russell or whether it's Richard E. Grant. They need more people there to mix things up and keep it lively. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Nothing to be afraid of. Right. And then the last one for today is an...
Oh, I wish I'd been prepared for this one.
I'm sorry.
I feel like I want to bring something really emotional and I have no clue right now. My mind is blank.
Right, so the last one is from an Anon on Tumblr. I know you ladies are serious podcasters, but if you could answer this silly question, what is your dream headcanon first Reylo kiss in episode 9? Oh my god.
I don't know how to answer this, I'm sorry.
This
is not a silly question. This is a very important, serious question.
It's the most important question in the whole of Star Wars. Okay, maybe not, but yes, it is a very important question. I'd like something very melodramatic and over the top, like they've just both been cornered by like an enemy faction and they've had to fight for their lives again for the first time since the Supremacy, when they fought together against the Praetorian Guards. And then when it ends this time, like before Kylo can say anything, can screw it all up, Rey charges over to him and gives him a big old kiss.
Actually, yeah, that's my headcanon, that it's Rey doing it.
Yeah, I want Rey to be in control. And yeah, I'd like something like that due to the poetry in terms of revisiting that scenario, but actually getting it right, because we all know that's what should have happened in The Last Jedi. So.
Yeah, I do think they have to revisit that scenario, whether there's an actual kiss or not. Just because that's kind of the format of those types of stories, that it's like, okay, it got screwed up in The Force Awakens when he asked to be her teacher, then it got screwed up again, so it's third time's a charm, right?
Yes.
But it has to be subverted in some way, and that's why I think, like you say, it's probably Rey taking the reins.
Yeah. So, that's my headcanon.
Yeah, but if I had more time and I knew about this question in advance, I could probably have come up with a specific fanfic scenario.
Yeah, I literally put this question in the notes about like 2 minutes before we started recording. It was a bit bad.
Well, no. I mean, it's just, sorry to disappoint, but I will say that anything I come up with could not be a patch on what J.J. Abrams and Ryan are able to deliver.
Yes.
Because, you know, they're the OG Reylos, so.
Yeah, exactly. We trust their creative powers. Oh, and also there should be fireworks going off in the background. Just because.
I disagree.
Okay. Well, then we'll come back to that in another episode. We should make one of the podcast ideas a debating episode where we both choose topics that we have highly polarised opinions on, and then we have to debate it until one person admits defeat. So.
Okay, that sounds like fun.
Okay, great. You should totally list that in the poll. Right, I think that's probably us done for this episode. You fly back next weekend, right, Kirsty?
Yeah, I'll be back in America on Sunday.
Okay, cool. So I think we'll probably need to skip next week, maybe?
Maybe.
Yeah, but we can cross that bridge when we come to it, basically. I
Yeah,
just wanted to give
play it by
people
ear.
some kind of warning, just so that they know that there might not be an episode then, and that is a jolly good reason if there isn't. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed recording this, and we will be back, whether it's in 1 week or 2. So yeah, and keep an eye out on Twitter for the mysterious poll that we have promised, because yeah, it'll be exciting stuff, and you'll get your say. So yeah, I'm Rachel. You can find me at Star Wars and Nonsense on Tumblr and at Journal of the Star Wars on WordPress. Where can people find you, Kirsty?
I'm Bastila Bay on Tumblr and Scavengers Horde on Twitter.
Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, bye!
Bye!